We're going to get in tonight at chapter 8, where Bildad speaks up. Not Bill's dad, but Bildad spoke up. And what has been Job's basic response to all of his circumstance at this point? What has been his response?
I'm innocent.
Yeah, I don't deserve this.
Or
I deserve this.
Why is this happening?
Why is this happening to me? You know, I don't deserve this. And what has been Eliphaz's thought at this point?
You must deserve it.
Yeah.
You must become so.
Yeah. Well, Bildad comes in. You know, he's riding to the rescue now. He is going to set matters straight and clear everything up, so that Job will have nothing to say in response. And in chapter 8, now we're looking at notes that you may have taken. What does Bildad say to Job? It really starts to get personal, doesn't it? Arguing from reverse, doesn't he? Okay, we're trying to make sense of why Job has this stuff going on in his life. And if, Job, you really are innocent, and you really think that's true, then you must think this, that God perverts justice.
Yeah.
Look at what he says. Verse 4. When your children sinned against him,
When?
he gave them over to the penalty of their sin.
Yeah.
Where does it say they sinned?
Only here.
It alludes to that when he says, so it was when the days of feasting had run their course that Job would send and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, it may be that my sons had sinned.
It may be. What does Bildad say?
They
I
did.
did. Yeah.
He moves it from the hypothetical to the concrete. So now we've moved, and what do we know that lets us know categorically that's not true? Didn't say the children were righteous, but the children were put in harm's way
Because
at God's allowance.
Yeah.
There is not, we cannot assume here that what Bildad says is true.
No.
He is making a judgment. But here's the thing that caught my attention when I was reading this. Do we do that when we are talking to folks about the struggles of their lives? Maybe 2 or 3 years after Courtney had died, I was writing to an event with John and Neva Blakely. And John was asking how we were doing in the ongoing living out of that situation. And we chatted about the fact that often we want simple explanations to very complex problems.
Yeah.
And I do think that that's one of the reasons that our Christian faith is sometimes maligned by folks, is that we look for simplistic solutions. And I don't, simplistic being differentiated from simple. There are some things about the faith that are simple, okay? There are simplistic things that are, that's insulting. Something that's simplistic oversimplifies, unnecessarily simplifies, and really robs a particular, whether it's a circumstance or a point of discussion, it robs it of its dignity and its integrity, because we diminish it to something that can be answered in a 2 + 2 = 4 kind of fashion. And Job's situation is anything but that. We've had folks say, well, we just tried to do the right thing and just tried to teach our kids the right thing and yada, yada, yada. And I would venture to say that probably everybody that has a child that isn't perhaps walking with God as faithfully as we might hope they would, can say, well, you know, so did we.
Yeah.
So did we. So how do we explain that?
Free will.
There's
Exactly.
free will and the sovereign God. What we don't often handle well is how far the sovereignty of God reaches into our lives. How sovereign is sovereign?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How sovereign is sovereign? Does God have... See, why is it that God would call some people to serve in places of relative comfort and prosperity, and call others to places of incredible difficulty and personal sacrifice? But why is it that would be the case? Again, I don't know that this fully answers the issue, but as Paul is talking in Romans, dealing with the issue of the sovereignty of God, he compares it to the potter who can take one lump of clay and make an elaborately delicate, expensive vase. And the same potter can take another lump of clay and make it into a water pot.
Yeah.
And whose prerogative is that? The potter.
Yes.
The potter. Okay. That, I think, comes back to the potter knowing the qualities of the clay that he's using. What are the giftings of that clay? Or let's keep it in the analogy of pottery. You wouldn't take the same kind of clay to make an expensive vase that you would take to make, what's the orangey looking clay stuff? What?
Terracotta.
Terracotta. It's a different type of clay. Okay? Properties are different. They're there for different purposes. And I think there's a fair comparison there to our lives. Okay? But what we have to be careful of and concerned of is that we don't do what Bildad has done here and said, well, hey, easy answer, your kids sin. It's just that simple. You know? Yeah. If you would just do the right thing. And I think we are, as a matter of fact, if you go on, he compares Job's children to those who forget God. Well, and you know, yes, and that triggers another thought. One of the reasons we resort to simplistic explanations is because we feel the pressure to have an answer.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
we do.
Good.
We absolutely
We feel the pressure to be able to explain your difficulty, Leroy.
Yes.
And say, it's not my job to explain your difficulty.
Oh, but you should know.
Yeah,
You're the pastor.
Yes.
well, and now you know. And now you all know. I'm as transparent as I can be. And there are some things, matter of fact, most things in ministry that are just messy. Grace is messy. Grace doesn't have black and white answers. Okay. Grace, you know what grace says? Can I move a little bit here? Okay. Stand with me, Sharon. Here's what grace says. Oh, grace says, come on, I'll walk it with you.
Yes.
That's what grace says.
Yeah, that's true.
Grace says, I don't have the answers. I don't know all the explanations. I can't put it all in some kind of black and white, oversimplified outline, 3 steps, or 10 steps, or 27 steps, or however many steps it is. It says, I will come and I will walk with you. And together we will get to the other side of it. Okay? And then we make the discovery. See, then we walk in discovery. These guys started out on a good path. Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, they did a good thing. They came and they sat with him for 7 days. They were on the right path, but they got drawn in, we've talked about. Sherry talked about defending God's character. And I know that there is a certain place. Matter of fact, as you get on to the end of the chapter, or end of the book, God is a little miffed at the three comforters because they weren't able to refute Job's faulty comments. Okay, he says, how is it that you weren't able to answer here? How is it you couldn't do that? And they allow themselves to get drawn in to the same places that you and I can go when we try to oversimplify what it is that God, in terms of dealing with this issue of pain, this issue of suffering. It's not easy. It's not simple. It's not something that we can just jot down a few answers and find out that everything is okay.